Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Going to be up there tonight there, Josh. I don't know if I'm going to put a bet in, but looking forward to it. You know, my old co-host, Todd Rank's in town there, Josh. You know what happens to the town when us two get together. Woo, baby. Going to be turning back the clock here, see if I can pick up my game tonight like the Eagles and the Cowboys need to this weekend. And a lot to dive into here. We just had former Cowboys wide receiver Jesse Holley on, and he talked about the amount of zone that the Cowboys play and how he thinks that could factor into this game today. Well, Adam Caplan, let's look at the Eagles' offense against that Cowboys zone and that matchup and how it might tell the story of this game on Sunday. How are you?
Mike, I'm well. Yeah, and by the way, let's just get the injury report out of the way, and then we'll get started with the matchups. I've got some good, interesting numbers. So the only one that the Cowboys are concerned about is Jadeveon Clowney, and they're very deep at edge, by the way, with their front. He's got shoulder and neck problems. He didn't have a full practice this week. He'll be a game day decision. Other than that, Prescott's fine with a hip injury. Dante Fowler will play. He's been cleared. Everyone else has been cleared. You know, they've had a lot of problems with injury in their secondary and their linebacker, but everybody's healthy. For the Eagles, Cam Jurgens, he needs to get final medical clearance before they fly tomorrow. Here's a great thing. He's ready to go. He feels like he's ready to go because he took the first team reps today. He's got to get clearance. Lane Johnson's out, obviously. Now, with Miles Hinton and Willie Lampkin, it's real simple. With Hinton, it's just a matter of it's his first NFL practices this week. He's obviously got a much better chance of being activated at some point within the next 3 weeks than Lampkin does, because Miles Hinton is what they need. They need a developmental tackle on the roster if they can. And, Mike, we've talked about this on our show, Inside the Birds, and with your show. The one guy that, if you're going to cut somebody, would be A.J. Dillon. He's not even active anymore. It's really interesting. He opened the season as the number 2, and that didn't last long. Well, Shipley took the job. So we'll see what happens. But right now, the Eagles, other than Lane Johnson, Mike, are looking good.
Yep, healthy there, and they're going to need it because this is an interesting matchup because the Eagles' offense has been a problem. Let's see how they match up against the Cowboy defense, which the Cowboys' defense has been a problem for them, and then they've added a couple players. We know they play a lot of zone here, so what do you look at inside this matchup of this Eagles' offense, which has struggled against the Cowboys' defense, which has certainly had its struggles this year?
It's funny, Mike. You know, Hertz's numbers will show you. If you talk about zone defense, he's not great at it. And they are. Matt Eberflus is ton of cover 3. He's really running everything he's done for his entire career. He really hasn't changed. Like Fangio's evolved. He's changed a little bit over the years. Not Eberflus. They're up there. They are top 3 in terms of zone coverage. 80% zone. It's cover 3. There are voids in every zone defense. It's funny, we talk about zone and how you got to find voids. Everyone they're going up against, other than Geno Smith, has been able to do that against Eberflus. So it's just really fascinating when you look at 2 wily old coordinators. Obviously, Fangio's much older, but Eberflus is at least in his 50s, and he was always thought of to be a good coordinator. But, Mike, to be honest with you, they've been awful on defense. That's why you see all these trades.
Well, and the trades obviously helped them out, at least for last week. I mean, their run D before the trade versus after. Now they have 2 defensive tackles that they like. Quinnen Williams played his first game and probably had his best game of the season.
Very impactful, Mike. It's funny. He was talking about how good of a defense they could have going forward. And then they made the trade for Logan Wilson, who, by the way, split snaps last week with Kenneth Murray. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I like these matchups for the Eagles. They've got terrible communication problems on the back end. They have enough corners. That's not the problem. They just don't play with any kind of discipline. They have a new front now. They're playing 3 defensive tackles. It's more of a 5-man front, and that helps their run defense. We'll see. Mike, overall, they're still giving up 4.7 yards per carry. These stats are damning, Mike, in terms of giving up big plays. They've given up 17 passing touchdowns this season. Worst yards per target, over 10 yards per target, which is abominable. Second highest pass yards per attempt. If you're giving up 7 yards per pass attempt, that's bad. 7.9 is awful. Fourth most passing yards. Now, I understand, as you said, they've made these trades. We'll see how impactful they are. Like, they've got all these edge rushers, but as Araku's playing a lot now, they're still not good enough. Quinton Williams now with the Eagles and the interior of the offensive line, which has been inconsistent, to say the least. We'll see how they handle Quinton Williams. But that's the fascinating part about this because, look, they play them week 1. Cowboys had just made the Parsons trade. Kenny Clark was not a factor yet. He's now a factor. Their defense is going to have to be. It's going to be better because they have better players. But we said this on our Jeff and I this week. Wouldn't it be fascinating if somehow, I know this is not what the Eagles want, but somehow this became a passing fest? No conditions, Mike. You're not worried about the weather here.
Right.
Just putting that out there.
Well, and listen, they play a lot of zone, which the Eagles have struggled against here, but they have not been very good, as you just kind of chronicled, against wide receivers. I mean, they've given up a ton of passing touchdowns, worst yards per target in the league. So it's like something's got to give, it feels like.
It can. Look, I've said this about Hurts. You never know when it's going to. I felt last year, I don't know why it was. It was the game against the Steelers. Because Greg Cosell in our pregame show, which will, by the way, will drop tomorrow for everybody, and then our Patreon members will get it tonight. We're going to tape it after this call. I mean, Greg and I went into that Pittsburgh game, and I felt last year like this is going to be, for whatever reason, Hurts is going to play well this week, and he was phenomenal. It's funny because him and Dak, they've had different, in their careers when they've played, they haven't always played against each other because of injury. And Dak has got this great record against the NFC East, but it's not as great against Sirianni, which is all that really matters to me. He's 4-2. He didn't play against them last year. He's missed 3 of them due to injury. He's lost, by the way, 2 out of the last 3 to the Eagles. He's also I looked this up. His last 2 times he faced Fangio, he lost against them. So, although the game against Miami, he was fine. That wasn't the reason why they lost. But they've had a lot of changes, Dallas, on this. Jerry Jones is convinced the more moves he makes, the better they're going to get, but I don't know about that.
Adam, let's look at the defense here. Philadelphia's defense, really good. Cowboys' offense, really good. Which of these matchups on this in this matchup are you kind of zoning in on? Yeah,
CeeDee Lamb. Now, this is pre-Fangio. Has absolutely annihilated the Eagles in their zone coverage. Now he sits in zones now. But I'll say this: yes, there was one good game that CeeDee had in the last 2 years against them. Week 1 was an odd game. Week 1 lies to you. I don't put a lot of stock into Week 1. You got to talk about it. It happened. Jalen Carter, obviously, we didn't talk about this Tuesday. Well, he was supposed to play in the game. He got thrown out as the game was going to get started, as we know. But he'll be back in this game. The Cowboys, if you're going to beat them, Mike, you got to get their interior, their offensive line. They got BB is a first-year starter. They got another one, their first-round pick from Alabama starting. There's some advantages the Eagles have, and don't forget what Jalen Phillips has meant to this defense. It isn't amazing since I know it's only one player, and obviously Nakobe Dean's a part of this. Dean starting over Campbell. Hunt, by the way, since week 1, it's Dean over Campbell, Hunt over Nolan Smith. Smith starting week 1. He's now the third edge rusher. The Eagles still play a lot of zone coverage, but this is comical. In today's NFL, the Eagles are 13th highest in man coverage at only 27%. The league is mostly zone still. But what I'm concerned about, because the Eagles are not deep at corner, if Dallas decides they're going to play a lot of 11 personnel or maybe some 10 personnel, which, by the way, they can, you're going to isolate Adoree Jackson no matter what. They got him in week 1, by the way. One of the worst games he's had for the Eagles was in week 1. They got him. So I'm interested to see what they do here, because Brian Schottenheimer's a terrific schemer and play caller. He does a really good job.
Well, you remember, you're right, the story after game 1 was they got to get him off the field. He has kind of settled in a little bit in that spot, but you would imagine if you are Dallas, that's the guy you want to target again, right? You're not going to go on the other side. So I would imagine they're going to try to get Adoree Jackson in coverage and see if they can get some big plays there.
Yeah, and Mike, one of the things, Jake Ferguson is very underrated. He's really good at running after the catch, but with Fangio's defense, they limit big plays. It's really good at that. This is going to be a fun game because they're playing now. Their defense is playing at elite level. We're going to see what Brian Schottenheimer, who calls the plays, who's a very aggressive play caller. I'm looking forward to seeing how that happens here. It's one of these games that it's very intriguing. Dallas needs this game desperately. The division is not up for grabs. Eagles are obviously going to win it. It's can they get a wild card spot? They know they need to have this game. They know it's a big game for them. Prescott did not have a good game one. Lamb did. The only play. I know that Javonte Williams had 2 touchdowns. The story was Lamb in week 1. He got open a lot against Jackson. They cannot let that happen. Pickens didn't do much. Another thing is, could they get physical with Lamb? I know the Eagles play a lot of off coverage. Don't let him sit. Like, that's, you can't do that. And Kevontae Turpin's very sneaky. It's either him or Jalen Tolbert as the third receiver. You're going to see both of them. Tolbert could run a little bit. He's got better size than Turpin. But they'll spread you out. They could go with some 10 personnel, which is 4 receivers, Mike. You got it. The way you win in the NFL is matchups. And you got to figure out a way to get to the backup corners. And then, of course, Coop's going to play. I wonder, though, in this game, if Jackson gets off to a bad start, does he move Coop to corner? Let's see what happens here.
Well, that's interesting. Michael Carter, we haven't heard his name a whole heck of a lot since he's been traded for. Could he certainly be getting more comfortable? And then, of course, I guess Jacorian Bennett. Haven't heard a lot about him either since he's kind of come back there. And how important I want to get your take on this. How important is the return of Juergens with Quinnen Williams and Clark? That interior seemingly would be a strength for them, and it's been a little bit of an up and down season for you there.
Yeah, assuming Juergens gets final medical clearance, huge. Because look, Brett Toth was unbelievable against the Giants. Okay, in another game, you really want your best players. And by the way, Juergens does not have the knee listed on the injury report this week. That's important to note. So if he gets cleared, that's huge because all of a sudden, what went from it was really about Osa Digizua inside. It's not just about him now because they've added in-season Kenny Clark, now Quinnen Williams. Eagles haven't faced them with this defense. And it's one thing Nick Sirianni said, they haven't faced this Eagles 2025 team since week 1. That's fine. Neither of the Eagles. They haven't faced this front. Their defense is mostly terrible this season, but let's see what Matt Eberflus post-bye has with this new revamped defense.
All right, Adam Caplan, real quick before we get out of here, they are 4-5-1 Dallas. This is essentially it for them, right? This is kind of like the kitchen sink kind of game. They got to do everything in their willpower.
Well, right now they're a 10th seed. Right now they have that tie, which is odd. But now Detroit losing Sam Laporta for the season, that's major. Carolina, I can't believe that they're 6-5. They don't. I mean, their defense is great. Their offense, like Bryce Young played the game of his life last week as a professional. Can't trust Bryce Young. They got to win. I mean, they can't go. It's going to be very hard for them overall. And just looking at Dallas' schedule the rest of the way, just to see what happens if they lose this week. Well, here's the problem, Mike. Oh, what a tough schedule. Home against the Chiefs, at Detroit, Minnesota, the Chargers. Then they end the season against the Commandos and Giants. But it's tough. It's going to be hard for them to get in if they lose this week, bottom line.
Yep, absolutely. And if the Eagles win, they would remain in first place and pretty much end that 20-year streak, right, Adam? That thing would be over.
It's ending. I wish. Look, I did pick Washington. I'll admit it, but I didn't know that they would lose 8 starters. I mean, come on, you can't predict that stuff. But the Eagles are clearly the class. They're really. I still think. I think in the end, because the Rams. I know the Rams right now are playing a little bit better football overall, but the Eagles have a little bit better experience, and I would love to see the Rams and Eagles meet in the NFC Championship game. That would be great.
All right, Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds, and of course the Inside the Birds podcast has more coverage of the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. You can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Adam.
All right, man. Thanks.
There he is, Adam Caplan, everybody. Our football at 4 for this Eagle-Cowboy game.